This is day 22 of me building a billion-dollar business in public. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, as always, we're going to start off by answering some basic YouTube Q&A, which are in the form of YouTube comments. So if you want to ask me any questions, please drop a comment down below. I'll answer it in the next video. Then we're going to get into the topic of today's video, which is my honest advice for developers who want to start a business. And last but not least, we're going to do a little bit of strategizing with regards to the main channel as well as our daily channel. Now, for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Bago, and you're currently watching this video on my daily channel, which is my second YouTube channel. A little about myself: I wrote my first line of code back when I was still in robotics. So this was 2016. We won the regional in 2017. I wrote it in MATLAB. From then on, I went into UCLA to study the human consciousness, part of the Elegant Mind Club. From then on, I went to NASA as a computer engineer. From then on, I went to the Fortune 500, right? So from private to public sector as a software engineering consultant. Spent 3 years there, went from junior to manager, one of the fastest promotions, then quit to found my own firm, AB Analytics, which is what I run to this day. We're just shy of $10 million in annually recurring revenue. Now, of course, I don't keep all of this. I have about 45 to 55% margins depending on a project. Furthermore, I do have an equal partner in this, so that further gets split down the line. I take home roughly about $100,000 to $200,000 a month, and that's before taxes, and I still pay taxes on top of that. So just to be transparent with regards to the revenue and everything else. My goal is to get this to $1 billion. Of course, not just AB Analytics, but Code to CEO, which is part of the reason that I even have both YouTube channels, right? Both of these combined will get me to $1 billion within the next 5 years. Now, if you want to learn more, because I skipped a lot of wins, even more losses, you can check out my personal website, which is about.code2ceo.com. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So let's go to YouTube and start answering some questions. We got 3 questions, it looks like. There's 3 comments. Simon says, hey, thanks for the awesome content. Hope to see you succeed. Appreciate it, Simon. I would like to ask where and how you do acquire your knowledge about all the stuff you're talking about. I understand that you're also paying some other mentors to learn from them, but is there anything else you do outside of your business work or mentor time? Thanks a lot for your time. Yes, actually. If you want, I can maybe make a video about it, but I learn through various ways. So my number one way of learning is experience. Experience is the best teacher, hence I use that to learn a lot. Specifically, I try stuff, I fail, I learn, I iterate. But nowadays, since I can't afford to fail nearly as often, once the stakes are higher, I replace this with mentorship, as you just mentioned, right? So I don't have to fail as much. And what I replace it with now in terms of like my main experience comes from actually traveling. So travel plus meeting people. This has been my primary way of getting new experience. In terms of knowledge that I build up, right? I have a few things. I have a few automations in my own life. So I have a scheduled GPT job. So I can maybe make a video on this if you want to see it. But every single day at 8 a.m. PST, I receive essentially knowledge and breakdowns on specific topics that I want to learn that month. This month currently, I'm learning more about copywriting. So I have copywriting lessons. I always have lessons with regards to like conquerors and world leaders. Just anybody that is a unique individual, breaks down their life, things they did right, things they did wrong, and just lessons that you can take away from them. I guess you can call them life lessons type of a thing. And then right now, the third thing that I'm taking a look at is with regards to understanding social media in general. So the effect of social media, how to go viral and things like that. So this is just for this month what I want to learn. Month to month, I change it up. For last month, for example, I didn't have copywriting. I had something completely different. And the way this works, it's really easy. I set up a job every single day, right? I'll get these lessons, and then all I have to do is spend about 10 minutes, 15 minutes just reviewing through them, learning the information, and then applying it. Actually, that's the most important thing. The third way are conversations. So every single day, I'll try to every single day, go on nightly walks. I go on a walk with my friends. Now, most of my friends are business owners themselves. There are various ones. If you saw the mastermind video, you would know one of my good friends, Danny. He owns the roofing company, right? He was also one of my first clients. That's how we actually met. I go on a walk with him. I go on a walk with a few other people. But these are essentially individuals from completely different walks of life, construction, this and that. And we all have different, I guess, things that we bring to the table. So we go, we converse, That's how we learn more information from one another, and we take whatever pieces that we're missing from our own lives. These are primarily the three ways that I learn. I actively try to learn always. I used to read a lot more books back in the day, but now I believe there's other higher ROI things to be doing. So I don't read books nearly as often. I still read them, but I used to read one every single week. Now I read them about, I would say, one every month or so. And most of the time, if I really want to take on a new, I guess, let's call it lens or new perception of reality, I'll travel and I'll meet very specific type of people. I'll go to a mastermind, I'll go to a specific event, I'll do something that I maybe haven't done before, things like that. So that's pretty much what I use in terms of outside mentors or business work. But business work and mentors teaches me a lot. I highly recommend, once again, this is the most underrated thing, and I'm not just saying this because I have a mentorship type of program. I mean it literally. With anything in your life, just get a mentor. It's going to be way cheaper for you down the long term. Trust me. So thank you for the comment, Simon, and I appreciate the kind words. Mike, thanks for the tremendous value you provide for free. Please keep providing lessons from mistakes you made earlier. In my opinion, these are the most valuable advices someone can give. Thank you, Mike, for the kind words. Will do. There's a lot that I made, so there's definitely a lot more content that I can talk about. And then VSP asks, how can you tell what clients might cause you more trouble than needed, as you mentioned? And how can you make sure that you don't get taken advantage of by a client when working with one? So generally speaking, any client that you meet, especially when you go on a sales call with, you're going to have a gut feeling about. You call it a gut feeling. Some people call it a sixth sense, right? Some people call it instinct, whatever you want to refer to. I'm just going to call it a gut feeling. But essentially, the feeling you get in the back of your mind where you're like, okay, I know for a fact this guy's he's bad news, or he's going to be a headache. So number one, I'll judge based on gut feeling. If I get a bad feeling about it, then I'm just not going to go with it. Second, I look for more actual quantitative measures, so actual data that I can take a look at. For example, a lot of the times when a customer hops on a sales call with me, the first question isn't about what I'm even offering or whatever. If the first question they ask is, do you have any guarantees? I say, this is not for you. Let's not work together. Because they are save me type of clients. So these are the clients you do not want. What the save me type of clients are is they are in a bad situation. They're looking for somebody to help them. And they are in such a desperate situation that most often than not, it's kind of like when somebody's drowning, right? They say, don't go and try to save them. Throw something so they can grab onto it and pull them in, because they're going to drag you down with them. That's exactly what a save me type of client is. Now, not always, but most of the time, you generally want to avoid these type of clients. The second you take them on, it's going to be a huge headache. They're constantly going to talk about the guarantees, this and that. When are we making progress? Blah, blah, blah. Huge headache. I do not recommend them, right? So that's another way. So there's two ways, basically. You have a conversation with them, you get a gut feeling. Second, to pay attention to the questions they're asking. How skeptical are they? If the first thing they ask about is, are there any guarantees? Then that tells me, okay, they don't even care what I'm offering. They don't even care what my expertise are. They don't even care what problem I'm solving. First thing they want to know is the price and if there's any guarantees. What does that tell me about the client? Because I try to put myself in their shoes, right? If I have a genuine problem that needs to be solved, I'm not asking how much is it. I'm asking, can you solve it, right? I'm asking, how are you going to solve it? The price, I don't care. Because if it's going to be worth it, then I'm going to pay that amount as long as that problem gets solved. So that's generally the way that I actually discern between good or bad clients. Now, early on when I started my business, I'm not going to lie, I took on a lot of these saving clients because I was desperate for money. I was desperate for cash. These were the biggest headaches of my life. They brought in the early revenue that I needed to, put food on the table and things like that. But in all honesty, if I just, for the lack of a better word, ate shit for 1 to 2 months and not had to take on these bad clients, I would have saved so many white hairs for myself. They were really annoying, really annoying. And there's not much you can do about them because at the end of the day, it's always your fault. It's your fault as the CEO for taking on these clients, okay? So you can't really even blame them because you, at the end of the day, have the power. You took their money, you have to deliver. So hopefully that made sense, VSP. Let me know if you have any more questions. Let me refresh to make sure there's no other questions. Perfect. Alrighty, so let's dive into the topic of today's video. And honestly, this is going to be my honest advice to developers who want to start a business. I did a poll on my main channel about what your guys' situations are. And actually, wait, let me see if I can bring it up. It might be easier than if I just talk about it. Can I do it? Actually, maybe if I do it this way. Yeah, I can, I guess. So let me put this here. So I did the post on my main channel, and then I saw most individuals did I have a full-time job and want to start a business on the side. So I'm assuming most of you watching this also are in the same situation. And what I want to talk about is my biggest really takeaway that I've had in all the businesses I got into, and now, and my true honest advice to the developers. Now, you might ask, why developers specifically? Because this advice applies to you guys a lot more. Let me start off by saying this. Every single one of you guys watching this, every single software engineer, you need to understand where you stand in society. Now, pay very careful attention to what I'm going to say. Do not twist my words and do not misunderstand what I'm trying to say here. If you take a look at the IQ bell curve, right? Most people are around here, average. Most software engineers are going to be on this bracket in here. So most of you guys have higher IQ than the average person. You're smarter, you have higher intelligence than the average person, right? As a direct result, most of you guys are making more money than the average person as well. But past a certain level of income, there's less and less correlation between IQ and income, right? What I'm trying to say here is a significant amount of you are operating way below your potential to make a lot more money. Not all of you, but a significant portion of you. Those of you making 100,000 could easily be making 200. Those of you making 200 could easily be making 300. Those of you making 300 could easily be making 400. You get my point. How do I know this? I know this for a fact because back when I was making $250,000 a year as a manager for Fortune 500 consulting for firms, as a software engineer, right? Not much changed in terms of my technical skills, nor the knowledge I had in my mind when I started the company. I was making millions. Really. I learned about sales, I learned about marketing, but in terms of actual technical knowledge or actual world-changing knowledge that I suddenly got, there wasn't anything like that. I was still pretty much the same person with relatively the same habits. Over time, I changed a lot, but initially, what really got me from point A to point B wasn't specific knowledge. It wasn't anything particular that I did, but rather it was one simple thing. Courage, okay? I don't understand why this doesn't get talked about nearly enough. And I've seen like all the entrepreneurship content almost online. Nobody talks about this. Everybody talks about you need to, you got to pay the knowledge gap, right? You got to focus on marketing. They all talk about these hypothetical things or limiting beliefs, this and that. Yes, all those are good, true. But the number one most important thing when you're going to make the transition to a business is you need to have courage. You need to have courage to dive into the unknown. You need to have courage to trust yourself that you'll be able to figure it out. Once again, me going from an employee to a business owner had nothing to do initially with my knowledge or my skills. It all had to do with my courage. Think about it. When I left and I only had $258 in my bank account, for a couple of months I was struggling to make any money at all because I kept taking on free work. Long story, right? The day that I actually got the paid client, the day that I closed that $16,000, it wasn't because I all of a sudden became an amazing salesperson. It wasn't because all of a sudden I became an amazing marketer. No, I was pretty much the same person. All it really took is I was pressed against the wall. I had no other choice. I put away shame, right? I stopped feeling shame because I needed to make difficult asks of people. And I got the courage, I mustered the courage to really push myself to do anything that I needed to do, to get anything that I needed to get done, to get the result that I wanted. After that day, I realized, wait a minute. Everybody is moving around in life so monotone. Everybody is sort of existing, but nobody is actively trying to live. Best analogy is, think about a light bulb. I'm sure some of you have seen in movies or just even in real life, the dim light bulb that sometimes flickers. It flickers a little bit, right? This is what most individuals are like, and this is what I was like as well. It's sort of like a light bulb, half on, so half lit, half off, flickering sometimes. Sometimes I'll have surges of brightness and then it will go out. And what I realized is courage is really the fuel to keeping this always bright and keeping this always on. Nothing else really matters when you're diving into a business as a software engineer, because you need to trust yourself that you already taking all the courses. If you're self-taught, even better. You need to trust yourself that you went through this entire roadmap. You accomplished one of the most difficult degrees on the planet. You landed one of the most difficult jobs to get on the planet. You're doing one of the more difficult, mentally demanding, logically demanding tasks of human beings in the modern era. You're getting compensated at a well enough rate relative to the average person. And most individuals cannot relate to you to the point that I'm sure many of you have, when you talk to your grandparents or your parents, if they're not technical people, you are the furthest thing away from them. Even myself, every time I see my grandma, right, she's from the Soviet era, pretty much. She doesn't even know how to use a smartphone. It's extremely difficult for her to properly use a smartphone. And when I see her using a smartphone, I always catch myself thinking, I'm like, okay, but is it actually that difficult? I can't even comprehend in my mind how somebody can misuse a smartphone. For me, I think, is she doing it on purpose? Obviously not, right? Obviously, she's just not familiar with the technology. So that's what it really entails. Like, non-technical and technical people are so far apart from one another, which brings up the point of the communication, why I emphasize communication so much. But they're so far apart from one another that you need to have a little bit more trust in yourself, that you'll be able to figure the non-technical things out when it comes to the sales, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to the communication. You already have the hardest part done. The actual creating the product, creating the solution part of a business, you have that done. You have those capabilities, right? There are people looking for technical co-founders to solve all their problems because nobody can create the product. But you guys as devs, you have the power to create the product. The hardest thing you need to do, you already have it done. The easiest part that you can learn, that you'll have an advantage over everybody else to learn, you can easily do it. And I mean, this is true for all software engineers. It is significantly easier for a software engineer to get into finance, right? To get into, let's say, nursing, to get into accounting, to get into physics, to get into mathematics, whatever the case, I can put anything here, than it is for the vice versa. Tell a nurse to get into software engineering. They're gonna be like, what? Right? Tell a finance guy to get into software engineering. They're gonna have a lot of difficulty. So at its core, it's way easier to transition from software engineering to any other major or degree or job than it is vice versa, right? Because of the way fundamentally our brain works as software engineers. So that's why the number one thing that's lacking from most developers that I've personally witnessed after talking to thousands of you and helping tens of you, right, in the tens, it is the courage to actually take that first step. The courage to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. The courage to trust yourself that you'll, somehow figure it out when the time comes. The courage to maybe leave that job and see what's going to happen with you. The courage to just put yourself out there. The courage to talk to that customer. The courage to reach out to people in your network. It all comes down to courage, right? And fundamentally speaking, when you look at the startups, if you look at the stats, it says most startups fail because of lack of funding. It's not lack of funding, it's a lack of courage. Because if a CEO truly cared enough about a startup, the lack of funds wouldn't be an issue most of the time. Now, there's exceptions to the rule, obviously, but usually when you run out of funds, you can't get any investors, you can take out a loan. If you can't take out a loan, you can go and be resourceful enough to get the money from somewhere. It all comes down to courage and how tenacious and willful a person is to accomplish whatever it is they want to accomplish. I guarantee you, 50% of startups that most likely failed if they had a good idea, had the founder actually been a little bit more courageous and been a little bit more persistent, given enough time, that startup would have worked out. And this is true time and time again. How many times have you had a great idea in your mind and then you've actually seen it already exist in real life? But you weren't necessarily aware of it beforehand that idea existed. Meaning you thought of an idea, but you didn't act on it. And then you saw that, wait, there's already another successful business here. What was the difference between that? It was courage. You didn't act on that idea, right? Until you went and searched for it and saw, wait, there's already a competitor, there's already people making money from this. But guess what? Somebody just like you had the same exact thought maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and instead of deciding to do the same thing, they instantly had the courage to just act on it. You see this time and time again. It is so important. That's why I want to highlight. And I didn't say my honest advice to people who want to start a business. I said my honest advice to devs, because a lot of individuals simply aren't cut out to get into business. A lot of individuals aren't cut out to handle the stress, handle all the pain, handle all these things and juggle everything. But devs are built for it, right? Once again, you guys are in this quadrant. Have a little bit more faith in your abilities, have a little bit more faith in you learning new skills, and truly understand where you stand in society when it comes to your ability. Technical ability is much harder to learn than non-technical things. Non-technical things, for a lot of the time, it's on essentially repeatability. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you'll become at it. Communication, right? Sales, marketing. The better you do it, you track your data, you take feedback, you iterate, you'll get better. However, when it comes to technical ability, how many people do you guys know yourself that dropped out of comp sci majors, of computer engineering majors? I remember my computer engineering classes, 80% of individuals dropped out. Despite them saying, I study every single day, I still don't get it. Like, it doesn't fit in my brain, right? That's the actual gap. It's when somebody from here tries to do something from here. Just like how not everybody's cut out to be a doctor, not everybody's cut out to be a surgeon, right? Or cut out to be a software engineer. So it's way easier to go from this quadrant to this quadrant than from this quadrant to this quadrant. And I'm not calling other people stupid. I'm just saying that you guys as devs, like we as software engineers, are smarter than most people. As a result, have a little bit more faith in yourself to have the courage to take the leap to take on entrepreneurship. And once again, even outside of the courage situation, I talk about this time and time again, devs are the perfect fit to become entrepreneurs. If you want, I can make a separate video on that, but I'm gonna put a pause on this for here. I already went a little deeper into it than I wanted to, but hopefully that made sense. Alrighty, let's get a little bit into strategy. So for that, let's start off from our main channel actually today. Let me refresh. I just uploaded a very nice video, the how to ruin your software engineering career in 90 seconds. You guys should go and definitely check that out. A very fun one. And it looks like, so we have an amazing click-through rate, but for some reason our impressions are pretty doo-doo. So we need to figure that out ASAP, see what's happening with that. My guess is tomorrow it should start picking up, but let's see. Click-through rate is really good, the impressions are quite low. You can see the views have been stagnating a lot on our main channel. So if I do last 90 days, you can see it's going on a downhill climb, but we are getting a lot more qualified individuals, which means our content is now targeting narrower audience, but that narrow audience is exactly who we want. So we're on the right path. All we really need to do now is improve our content where we can get a broader appeal, so attract more of our ideal customers while at the same time maintaining the same level of quality. So we got to figure out how to essentially expand the funnel a little bit. As for our daily is, let me go to analytics. Our daily is not bad. I mean, let's take a look at the last 7 days to see our metrics. Yeah, we had a lot more views compared to before. We had less subs, but that's fine. Our watch time is also increasing. So continuously we're doing better and better. Our thumbnails, once again, definitely need a little bit of improvement comparably, and our titles as well. But at the same time, I'm not focused on this channel for it to go viral. I'm more focused on this channel providing just strictly value. That's why I don't package any of the videos too nicely and things like that. We do have a decent amount of dislikes to like ratio. I wonder why people do that. If they could just leave a comment, because if you guys want me to improve something, you can just tell me, you know, I have no problem with that. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. The plan for both channels right now. I think that's all I want to talk about. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching. Once again, appreciate you guys sitting down and watching. And if you guys want to work with me one-on-one or, you know, talk about joining Code to CEO and see if it's a good, nice fit for you, please book a call down below. It's completely free. And I'm the one that actually goes on these calls because once again, I want to partner with you guys. And you'll see a very nice video dropping either end of September or beginning of October. We have our first millionaire from Code to CEO. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a good one.